Hello students, welcome to my channel Learning History Made Easy. In today's video, we'll be seeing about the Satavahana Administration and Society. Before getting into the video, if anyone is seeing the channel for the first time or if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe and share it with your friends, and also click the bell button to receive notifications whenever I upload new videos. So without wasting time, let us get into today's video. So as I have told, we are going to learn about Satavahana administration and their society. So first we will see about Satavahana administration. Satavahana administration. Okay. So regarding the Satavahana administration, from where do we get information about Satavahana administration, or what were the sources which give us information about their administration? So if we see coins, inscriptions and literature were the rich sources which gives us information. Coins were there, inscriptions were there, okay, and literature. Coins, inscriptions and literature were the rich sources which give us information about their administrative system. And in their administration, who was the highest? That is, king was the highest official. Okay, king was the highest official of the government, and his office was hereditary. King's office was hereditary. Okay, king was the highest official and his office was hereditary. And the rulers, the Satavahana rulers, did not believe in divine right of the king. There were many other dynasties in which rulers believed in divine right. So in Satavahanas, they did not believe, okay, they did not believe in the theory of divine rights, okay, divine rights. Satavahana rulers did not believe in the divine rights. So the main sources which give us information about Satavahanas were coins, inscriptions and literature. And the king was the highest official, his office was hereditary, and they did not believe in the divine rights. So the kings did not believe in the divine rights. Now let us see the next point, that is, we said that they did not believe in the divine rights, but how did they carry their administration? They carried their administration in accordance to the directives of Dharmashastra. So their administration was carried according to the Dharmashastras. So it was not based on divine right, it was according to Dharmashastras and the social customs that they carried on their administration. Now we said that a king was the highest official there, and king himself led the army in the battlefield. Okay, he led the army in the battlefield. Whenever there was a war, the king was the person who led the army in the battlefield, and was the commander-in-chief of the forces. So king was considered as the commander-in-chief of the forces. King was considered as the commander-in-chief. And after the king, there was a council of ministers to aid and advise the king. So king was there. After the king, we can see there was council of ministers. This council of ministers aid and advise the king for carrying on the administration. So king was helped by council of ministers. And Satavahana kings, especially, they regarded their subjects, okay, their people or their subjects, they considered as their own children. Okay, Satavahana kings considered their subjects as own children, and always they looked after the welfare of their subjects. So that looking after the welfare of their subjects was the main duty of Satavahana kings. So king was helped by council of ministers, and they considered their subjects as their own children, and they looked into the welfare of their subjects. Now, the next point is the empire was very vast and the administrative was feudal. Okay, the empire, Satavahana empire was very vast, and if you see their administration, it was a kind of a feudal administration. It was feudal. That is, they divided the empire. The empire completely was divided among a number of feudal chiefs. Okay, there was a number of feudal chiefs, and the empire was divided among these feudal chiefs, and they managed the land revenue system and looked after the administration. These feudal chiefs looked after the land revenue system as well as the administration. Both were looked after by these feudal chiefs. So there was a vast empire. The administration was feudal, empire was divided, and it was divided among some feudal chiefs, and they looked after the land revenue system and the administration. And if you consider the feudatories, there were 3 grades of feudatories. Okay, 3 grades were there of feudatories. Feudatories consisted of 3 grades, that is the Raja, then Mahaboja, and the Maharathi or Senapati. Maharathi or Senapati. So there were 3 grades of feudatories. One was Raja, one was Mahaboja, and the third one is Maharathi or Senapati. The Raja belonged to the highest grade. Among the 3 grades, Raja belonged to the highest grade, and he had the right to impose taxes and to strike coins. Raja can impose taxes, and he can also strike coins. That power was with the Raja. And the second grade was, so this was, Raja was the highest. Second grade was Mahaboja. Okay, second grade was Mahaboja, and the third was Senapati or Maharathi. Okay, the third grade. So like that, 3 grades were there: Raja, Mahaboja, then Maharathi or Senapati. These were the 3 grades of feudatories during the time of Satavahanas. Okay. And after that, the kingdom was divided into provinces. The kingdom was divided into provinces. For easy administration, the kingdom was divided into provinces and Janapadas. Okay, Janapadas. The kingdom was divided so that the administration will work out in efficiency. For administrative efficiency, the kingdom was divided. And the highest official in province was the Amatya. In province, the Amatya was the highest official, and each unit has several villages. There were several villages in each unit. So provinces were there, Janapadas were there, and villages were there, and village was administered by Gramika. Village administration was taken care by Gramika. So empire was divided into provinces and Janapadas. In provinces, Amatya was the highest official, and there was a group of villages, and villages were administered by Gramikas. So this was how the administration was carried on efficiently during the period of Satavahanas. Now just let us go through the points which we have studied till now. Satavahana administration. The Satavahana coins, inscriptions and literature are the rich source of our knowledge about their administration. King was the highest official of the government, and his office was hereditary. The rulers did not believe in divine rights of a king, and they carried administration in accordance with the directives of Dharmashastra and the social customs. King himself led his army in the battlefield and was the commander-in-chief of his forces. There was also a council of ministers to aid and advise him for carrying out administration. Satavahana kings regarded their subjects as their own children and always looked after their welfare. The empire was very vast and administrative system was feudal. They divided their empire among a number of feudal chiefs who managed the land revenue system and looked after the administration. There were 3 grades of feudatories: the Raja, Mahaboja and Maharathi or Senapati. The Raja belongs to the highest grade. He had the right to impose taxes and to strike coins. The second grade was found by Mahaboja and third grade by Senapati. The kingdom was divided into provinces and Janapadas for administrative efficiency. The highest official in the province was Amatya or minister. Each unit had several villages and the village was administered by Gramika. So now let us move on to the next point regarding the Satavahana administration. There were several officials to help the king. So we learned that there was council of ministers to help the king. So there was also several officials to help the king, like Senapati was there, who took care of the army, then Mahaboja, then Rajadoot, all these etc. All these were the officers who helped the king in administration. And there was a special officer called as Uparakshitha. Okay, Uparakshitha was a special officer, and this special officer was charged with the duty of building caves for the monks. Okay, building caves for the monks, for the meditation of monks. Caves were built, and Uparakshitha was in charge of building caves. That was a special officer. He was in charge of building caves for the monks. And the monks and Brahmanas both were kept in high esteem. Monks as well as Brahmanas were respected and were kept in high esteem during that time. And there was separate organization to look after the administration of towns and villages. Okay, the administration of towns and villages were looked after by separate organization. Towns were administered by a body called as Nagarasabha. Okay, Nagarasabha was there for looking after the administration of towns, and villages had Gramasabhas. So towns had Nagarasabhas and villages had Gramasabhas. So these were the separate officers or departments to look after their administration. Nagarasabha looked after the towns and Gramasabha looked after the villages. And those were special officers. And the military administration, regarding the military administration of Satavahanas, that was very efficient, quite efficient military was there for the Satavahanas, and it consisted of army, consisted of foot soldiers. Okay, foot soldiers were there, cavalry were there, and elephants. Foot soldiers, cavalry and elephants were there in the Satavahana army, and the main backbone of the army was foot soldiers. Okay, or infantry was the backbone of the Satavahana army. And the soldiers, they used different weapons, like swords were used, spears were used, axes were used, and armours, etc. were the weapons which were weapons of war used during Satavahana period. So quite efficient military was there. Foot soldiers, cavalry and elephants were all these were included in their army, and infantry or foot soldiers were the backbone, and the main weapons, war weapons which they used were swords, spears, axes, etc. That was the administration of Satavahanas. Next, considering their social condition of Satavahanas. Okay. In Satavahana society was divided into 4 classes. Okay, the society was divided into 4 classes. And the first class consisted of high officials and feudatories. High officials and feudatories or feudatory chiefs, okay, were the first. If you consider the first class, they had high officials and feudatory chiefs. The second class included officers. Okay, second class included officers like Amatyas, as we studied, then Mahamatras, and also wealthy traders. These were the second class. So first class, high officials and feudatory chiefs. Second, officers like Amatyas, Mahamatras and traders. Now the third class basically were middle class. Okay. Third class was the middle class. Middle class means you can tell physicians were there, physicians, merchants, all were consisted in the third class, that is middle class. And the fourth and last class consisted of carpenters, blacksmiths, etc. Carpenters, blacksmiths, etc. were included in the fourth class. So this is how the society was divided into four classes. So first class, high officials, feudatory chiefs. Second class, officers like Amatyas, Mahamatras and traders. Third class, middle class consisting of physicians, writers, etc. And the fourth and last class were the carpenters, blacksmiths, etc. So this was the social division or division of classes during the Satavahana period. And the smallest unit of society was a family. Okay, family in society, it was the was the smallest unit. Smallest unit was the family, and the eldest living member commanded the highest respect. That is, eldest living member was called as eldest member was called as Grihapathi. Grihapathi, and he had the highest respect in the society. That is, Grihapathi, who was the highest member. So that was about the family system during the Satavahana period. Now let us just go through the points till which we have studied. There were several officials to help the king, that is Senapati, Mahaboja, Rajadoot, etc. There was also a special official called Uparakshitha who was charged with the duty of building caves for the monks. The monks and Brahmanas were held in high esteem, and there were separate organizations to look after the administration of towns and villages. Towns were administered by a body called Nagarasabha, and villages had Gramasabhas. The military administration of the Satavahanas was quite efficient. Army consisted of foot soldiers, cavalry and elephant. Foot soldiers or infantry was the backbone of the army. The soldiers used swords, spears, axes and armours as weapon of war. Now, social condition during Satavahana period. The Satavahana society was divided into four classes. The first class consisted of high officials and feudatory chiefs who ruled over provinces and districts. The second class included officers like Amatyas, Mahamatras and wealthy traders. The third class were the middle class people such as physicians, writers, etc. The fourth and the last class constituted carpenters, blacksmiths, etc. The smallest unit of a society was family, in which the eldest living member commanded great respect. He was called as Grihapathi. Now moving on to the next point, same regarding the social condition. Okay. Now regarding the social condition, women were honored and they were given higher education. Okay. In Satavahana society, women were honored and they were also given higher education. So that was a positive thing during that time, and women even participated in religious functions. We can see that some rulers, okay, regarding the importance of women there, some rulers added their mother's name. Satavahana time, some rulers added their mother's name to their name. Example, mother's name to their name. We all know the examples. Example, Gautami Putra, Shatakarni. So Gautami Putra, son of Gautami. So mother's name was added. One more, Vasishta Putra. Vasishta Putra. So like that, mothers' names were added to their names as they gave so much respect to women. And Satavahanas claimed to be Brahmanas. Okay, so basically, considering their religion, they have claimed themselves as Brahmanas. They claim themselves as Brahmanas, and King Gautamiputra Shatakarni described himself as a Brahmin and claimed to have established the fourfold Varna system. Okay, they claim to have established the fourfold Varna system. Varna system is claimed to have established by them. So women had a high position, they were honored. Some rulers added mothers' names to their name, and Satavahanas considered themselves as Brahmanas. And it is said that they claim to have established the fourfold Varna system. Okay, and Satavahanas were the first rulers to make land grants to the Brahmanas. Land grants were given to the Brahmanas by the Satavahanas. Intermarriages were considered obnoxious during the time of Satavahanas, even though there are some instances of such marriages. In this period, intermarriages among Hindus, okay, there were intermarriages among Hindus and foreign tribes. Foreign tribes, example like Shakas or Parthians. So intermarriages between Hindus and foreign tribes like Shakas and Parthians and Greeks were freely consummated, so that foreigners were absorbed in the Hindu social order. So this was accepted, or it was easily or freely consummated, because what is the reason? That is, foreigners should be absorbed in the Hindu social order. Hindu social order. For that purpose, this was accepted. So that was about the religious beliefs of the Satavahanas. So land grants were given. They considered themselves as Brahmanas, and land grants were given to the Brahmanas. Intermarriages were obnoxious, and but you can see some instances of such marriages. The marriages between Hindus and foreign tribes such as Shakas, Parthians and even Greeks were freely consummated, so that foreigners were absorbed in the Hindu social order. So this was about the society or social system of Satavahanas. We'll just see the points which we have studied. Women were honored and they were given higher education. They participated in religious functions. We can see that some of the rulers added their mother's name to their names, such as Gautamiputra and Vashishtaputra. Satavahanas claimed to be Brahmanas, and King Gautamiputra Shatakarni described himself as a Brahmin and claimed to have established the fourfold Varna system which had fallen into disorder. Satavahanas were the first rulers to make land grants to the Brahmanas. Intermarriages were considered obnoxious, though there are some instances of such marriages. In this period, intermarriages among Hindus and foreign tribe of the Shakas, Parthians and the Greeks were freely consummated, so that foreigners were absorbed in Hindu social order. So these were the points regarding the Satavahana Administration and Society. So I hope you have understood all the points very clearly. In case of any doubts, you can ask in the comment section, and we'll continue with the Satavahana dynasty in the coming videos. And also, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. Your likes and shares will be of a great encouragement for me to make coming videos. So I hope to see you all soon in the coming video. Thank you for watching.